From homeless to millionaire, a black man's journey inspired by Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Richard never thought he'd find himself staring at a woman sleeping rough on the cold city sidewalk, especially not after stepping out of another glittering gala. His life was anything but ordinary. A penthouse perched above the city's glittering skyline, parties swirling with models whose smiles never quite met their eyes, and enough money to buy every dream he ever had. Yet, behind his glossy world, Richard felt a hollowness clawing at his chest, like a silent scream muffled by champagne glasses clinking in the night. That night, the kind of night where luxury feels loud and lonely. Richard's fancy car slowed by the flickering glow of a worn cardboard sign. Maya's eyes, dark and steady under the shadow of the street lamp, caught his. Most had never heard Maya's name linked to Musk before, but her voice carried a secret, one that sent shivers racing down Richard's spine. "You know," Maya said, blowing a thread of breath into her curled hands, "I helped shape his vision. Before the millions, before the rockets, I was the spark." Richard blinked. How could this woman, whose life twisted through the darkest corners of the city, be tied to one of the greatest minds of their time? The idea hit him hard, shaking his world like an earthquake. His mind raced. If Maya could rise from this, what did that mean for him, trapped in his shining cage? But the city whispered rumors. His affluent friends watched, wary. Whispers spread fast. One particularly sharp-eyed socialite even eyed Maya's influence as a tool for her own rise. Richard felt the tight grip of pressure. Would he risk it all to help Maya reclaim her life? Or would he turn away from the raw truth she embodied, retreating into his safe, glittering bubble? His heart thudded like a drum, heavy with temptation and fear. The beautiful models who normally surrounded him, their smiles now seemed hollow and distant. That night air was thick with tension, between the glitz and the grit, the familiar and the unknown. But then, just when Richard thought he understood Maya, an unexpected secret slipped out, hanging between them like a whispered curse. Something dark from her past that could shatter everything Richard had come to believe about hope, power, and trust. Maya's eyes held a guarded pain, the kind that begged questions Richard wasn't sure he was ready to ask. The city lights flickered like hesitant promises, illuminating the crossroads where their worlds collided. What was hidden beneath her armor? Could he face it, or would the truth push him away forever? The night held its breath, and so did Richard. Hey, before we continue, take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like. That really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Richard felt the weight of the night air press against him, cradling both excitement and dread. Maya's dark eyes spoke volumes, yet he stood frozen, the world around him dimming into an echo. Before he could find the words, the city pulsed. A sudden sound broke the tension, sharp and metallic, a cry that felt familiar yet foreign. The night shattered when a figure emerged from the shadows. A man, disheveled and wild-eyed, sprinting down the street. His breath came in ragged bursts, panic etched deep in his features. Richard, instinctive, Help! Please! The stranger shouted, his voice slicing through the night. They're after me! The words rolled off his tongue like a desperate plea. Before Richard could register the unfolding chaos, 3 more figures followed, dressed in dark clothing, their faces obscured. They moved smoothly, dangerously, the way predators do, and the laughter that escaped their lips sent chills up Richard's spine. Maya, they called out, with a twisted familiarity that made Richard's skin crawl. We know you're here. Richard felt his breath hitch in his throat. His gaze flickered to Maya. The fierce strength in her eyes faltered just for a moment. No, she murmured, more to herself than to him. The stranger darted past them, yanking Richard from his daze. You've got to help me. They'll kill me if they catch me. Both men locked eyes, and in that moment, Richard saw something in the stranger. A reflection of his own hidden fears, a mirror of desperation. The trio stalking behind closed in, laughter echoing against the cold concrete. Richard felt the tension coil tighter, his throat dry. Get in the car, he shouted, urgency pushing him. But before the stranger could respond, one of the predators lunged forward, thrusting a knife into the air. Time slowed. Richard's heart raced. He dove toward the stranger, pushing him aside just as the knife whizzed past, slicing through the air where he'd stood a second before. A collective gasp echoed from the onlookers, abruptly turning their glamorous world upside down. Maya reacted in a flash, gripiendo Richard's armo. We need to go. Her voice was a whip, laced with a command that pushed him forward. They bolted toward his car, adrenaline surging like wildfire. Richard fumbled for his keys, the sound of his heartbeat drowning out the chaos behind them. But the night had other plans. With a sudden crash, the sound of shattering glass, Maya stumbled, her hand flying to her arm. Richard spun around. Horror crashing over, like a wave, as he saw the dark stain blooming against her sleeve. Maya, panic gripped his chest, and he pulled her into his embrace, the warmth of her blood seeping into his clothes. The predator stopped short, their laughter silenced. One of them stepped forward, a sneer curling on their lips. You thought you could just walk away? In that moment, everything shifted. Maya's steadfast spirit flickered, replaced by something deeper, darker. No, you don't understand. Her voice was faint, struggling through the pain. Richard looked into her eyes, searching for answers in the storm that brewed. Maya, what's happening? He felt the ground spin beneath him. Suddenly, everything he believed shattered like the glass around them. She grinned weakly. A glint of something he hadn't noticed before, something hidden amid the pain. Richard, I'm not who you think I am. The atmosphere felt heavy, the truth hanging between them like a sword. He gasped, a bitter chill clawing at his heart. The URL of everything he knew twisted, warped into something unrecognizable. What do you mean? But before she could explain, the predators charged forward. Richard felt a rush of fury as he fought against the tide, while Maya's words swirled around him, a haunting echo that would change everything they thought they knew. And just when he thought he could face it all, everything slipped away into the dark. The world faded as he grasped at shadows. The night held its breath, and so did Richard. Maya, he started, his voice barely a whisper. What do you mean by that? The spark! Maya's dark eyes flickered with a spark of something deeper. Was it fear? Hope? Then, before she could respond, a sudden crash shattered the tension. They both jumped, hearts racing. A car screeched to a halt just a few feet away. Richard turned instinctively, his body tensing. A figure stumbled out, a man clad in a suit that had clearly seen better days. He was wild-eyed, hair disheveled, hands shaking. The man pointed an accusatory finger. You think you can just hide? You've ruined everything! Richard's heart pounded. Who is that? Maya flinched, her expression shifting from resilience to pure terror. No, it can't be. The man's voice grew louder, jagged with desperation. You were supposed to keep your mouth shut. Do you have any idea what you've done? Richard felt the ground slip beneath him. What is he talking about, Maya? His voice trembled slightly. He's just angry, Maya stammered, eyes darting as if searching for an escape. Angry? The man laughed, a harsh bark that echoed through the night. She's endangered us all! You don't even know the half of it, do you, Richard? The words struck Richard like a physical blow. What are you saying? What danger? Maya took a step back, her hands clenched. Please, let's just go. But the man lunged forward, his eyes wide with manic determination. No, this is bigger than you both. The connections, the lies, everything was supposed to be quiet. And now? His voice cracked. Now it's all coming down. Richard felt a pit form in his stomach. Connections? What are you? Before he could finish, the man pulled something from his pocket. A flash of metal reflected the city lights. Richard's breath caught in his throat. The figure raised it high, and Richard instinctively moved in front of Maya, heart racing, adrenaline kicking in. Stop! Richard shouted, but the man didn't listen. A loud bang echoed in the night, sharp and deafening. Maya gasped, stumbling back, hands over her mouth. Richard's world narrowed, everything blurred. He felt the weight of the air, his heart hammering. Thud, thud, thud. He dared to glance at Maya. Her face was a mix of shock and wild fear, silent screams trapped in her eyes. Then came silence. Richard blinked, disoriented. The world felt frozen, as if it held its breath alongside him. He pulled away slightly. The man was collapsed on the ground, the weapon rolling away, eyes wide open, shock painted across his face. A shadow moved behind him. Richard turned. More figures were emerging, distant silhouettes stepping from the darkness, uniforms, flashing lights. Sirens sliced through the night, amplifying the chaos that surrounded them. Richard! Maya's voice was frantic, pulling him back to reality. His heart raced, confusion overwhelming him. What had just happened? Who was this man? And what truth had he unveiled? Richard caught Maya's expression. Fearful, vulnerable, everything he thought he knew, twisted into knots, unraveling his understanding of her story. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. What did she hide behind that fierce gaze? "Ha ha ha! Let's go!" she whispered, urgency drenching her voice. But just as they turned to run, Richard's phone buzzed violently in his pocket. He pulled it out, the screen glowing bright and alive. A message from an unknown number. Stay away from her. You have no idea what you're getting into. The night loomed heavy, secrets swirling like fog around them. And just like that, everything he believed about his life and Maya's was crashing down. What had they unleashed? Richard felt the weight of the world pressing down. He had stepped into a nightmare, and it was only beginning. Richard felt the pulse of panic radiating from Maya. This was no ordinary night. He readied himself to run, but his eyes landed again on the strange man lying motionless on the asphalt. Sirens wailed in the distance, harsh and unforgiving. He looked back at Maya. "We can't stay here. We have to go." Her voice trembled, the essence of urgency clawing at him as the weight of those unknown dangers pressed down like a brick. The flashing lights grew closer, spilling shadows over them. "Where?" he exclaimed, eyes darting. "What do we do?" She hesitated, directed her gaze to the scene behind them, and her face paled. "Richard, we can't go. They're watching." "Who?" Maya's eyes widened, her breath shaky. "I need you to trust me." Just a loud crash interrupted her, breaking the night like glass. More figures appeared. Police, blue uniforms marching toward them with authority. Richard felt a conflict of emotions. Fear sank deep, but adrenaline flared. He didn't want to be caught between this chaos, especially with Maya. Suddenly, the unknown man on the ground began to stir, his eyes fluttering. What seemed like shock turned swiftly to vigilance. Richard's heart dropped as he recognized the man's face. The man who had once been a big player in corporate circles, a man connected to everything, including him. "Kyle Sanders." "Maya," he whispered, confusion flooding him. "What's going on?" She watched Kyle like a hawk, jaw clenched. He's part of it, part of everything. Before Richard could respond, Kyle shot up, eyes darting with wild determination. "We have to move! All of you! They'll be here any second!" Richard's stomach lurched. "Who will? What's happening?" "Just know, she's at the center of all this," Kyle shrieked, gesturing at Maya. "You've been marked, Maya. You opened your mouth when you weren't supposed to." Maya went pale. "No, Kyle, no." Her voice cracked, revealing a raw edge. "I didn't want any of this." Richard stepped back, a tightness in his chest. "What did you do, Maya?" She started to respond, but was cut off as more police vehicles arrived. Lights flashing, sirens blaring. The air thickened with panic. "We need to get out of here." Kyle's expression hardened. "This isn't just about you two anymore. It's bigger than any of us. If they catch her, it's over." "Maya?" Richard felt a lump rise in his throat. Trust was slipping away, a fragile thread unraveling. He felt trapped between a past he thought he understood and a present spiraling into chaos. "Trust me. I need you to," Maya begged, anguish rippling through her solemn gaze. Before he could respond, a piercing scream split the night, shattering everything. A woman rushed from a nearby alley, clothes torn, face streaked with blood. "Help! They're coming! They're coming for all of you!" Richard's heart raced, confusion soaring. "What do you mean, they?" The woman fell to her knees, grasping at the air. "It's a trap! You're all part of their game!" Richard's mind raced. He couldn't process it all. The sirens, the chaos, the quickly dissolving reality he thought he understood. Everything felt like a fever dream. Maya instinctively reached for him, her fingers brushing against his arm. "We need to go!" But a single thought pierced through his chaos. What if Maya was the danger? Before he could voice it, someone shouted from behind, a voice laced with authority. "Stop right there!" Richard turned to see the police closing in, weapons drawn. "Maya!" he shouted, eyes wild. "What's happening?" But as the officers advanced, he felt something shift in the air. A quiet revelation that rocked him to his core. Suddenly, Maya whispered, "You have to understand. What I was part of is far from benign. I never wanted this." The world swirled, shadows crashing together like broken glass. Richard's stomach dropped. What did she mean? And in that moment, everything changed. The trust he had for her flickered like a flame caught in a storm. Doubt snaked around his mind, squeezing tight. Could he still believe in her? As the officer shouted louder, chaos erupted. Richard felt a dark dread crawl up his spine. "Maya," he swallowed. "What have you done?" And just like that, the ground beneath him felt unsteady. Everything he knew turned upside down, and the relentless shadows closed in tighter, forcing him to question the truth of it all. The night held its breath, charged with unsaid words and unasked questions. Richard's heart thudded, caught in the electric gaze of Maya. But before he could dive deeper into whatever darkness lay hidden behind her guarded facade, the world around them twisted violently. A sudden scream sliced through the chilly night air, shattering the moment. A woman, her face contorted in terror, stumbled out of a nearby alley, her shirt torn, eyes wild. She stumbled into the street, her arms flailing as she cried out, "Help! Somebody, please!" Richard instinctively moved toward her, but it was Maya who darted forward, her expression shifting from guarded pain to fierce determination. "Stay back!" she yelled over her shoulder to Richard. The woman collapsed near the curb, her breath coming in violent. Richard stood frozen, confusion and fear twisting in his gut. "What happened?" he managed to call out, as the woman's panicked eyes locked onto his. They took him! They've got him!" She choked on her words, wiping away tears that mingled with the grime of the street. "They took my brother! I couldn't stop them!" Richard looked at Maya, searching for guidance, but her face darkened, shadows passing swiftly across her features. "Who took him?" he asked, urgency creeping into his voice. "Maya! They know you! You have to help me!" The woman's voice broke, shattering the precarious tension. "They said if I—" "Stop!" Maya's voice was sharp, slicing through the chaos. "You don't understand. I can't get involved." "But you have to!" the woman pleaded. "They think you're dead. They think you don't matter anymore. But you do. You can save him." The weight of Maya's past crashed over Richard like a wave. He had glimpsed her strength, her resilience. But this was desperation laced with something deeper. "What do you mean? What happened?" he pressed, but Maya turned away, her breaths quickening. "I left that life behind!" Maya shouted, her voice cracking, almost pleading. "I'm not going back." The woman gripped her arm, tears streaking down her face. "You're his only hope!" she cried, shocking Richard with a truth he hadn't fathomed. Maya was tethered to this world, a world of pain and violence he didn't want to believe existed. He saw the truth behind her eyes. Her fear wasn't just for the brother. It was fear of what she would become again. "Richard," Maya said, her voice low and urgent, desperation trailing off. "You don't know what you're asking, what they will do." Richard felt a tightness in his chest, a panic rising. "We can't just abandon him. We have to do something." As if the city itself were eavesdropping on their chaotic emotions. A low rumble echoed in the distance, a warning or perhaps a harbinger of darker things to come. Richard could hear whispers from bystanders, murmurs of shock and disapproval merging with the night. He turned to see curious faces peering from behind parked cars, shadows lurking just out of focus, judging. Could he pull Maya back into this life? In that instant, a flash of headlights illuminated the scene. A black SUV came barreling down the street, tires screeching against pavement, and Richard's world blinked. The silhouette of masked figures spilled out of the vehicle, and it all spiraled into chaos. "Run!" Maya yelled, urgency in her voice that shook Richard to his core. Suddenly, the entire night shifted. Richard's idyllic, glamorous world collided with a nightmare he never knew lingered just beneath the surface. The truth twisted like a knife in the darkness. Would Richard stand with Maya and confront her past? Or was this the moment the glittering cage truly shattered? The air crackled with tension, but one question loomed larger than all. How deep did Maya's secrets run, and what would it take to draw them out into the unforgiving light? The night held its breath, and so did Richard. A tension thickened the air, wrapping around them like a dark shroud. He found himself leaning closer to Maya, the allure of her words drawing him deeper into a world he'd never known. But just as he was ready to unravel the secrets she held, the world around them exploded into chaos. A loud crash echoed through the street, scattering across the pavement. Richard spun around, heart racing. The sound came from his own penthouse, distant but unmistakable. Instinct pulled him away from Maya. Without a second thought, he sprinted back toward the chaos, leaving his newfound connection hanging in the air. Each hurried step felt like a drumbeat of dread in his chest. He turned the corner, and there it was, his home, once a place of light and laughter. Now a dark silhouette, flames licking the night sky. A crowd had gathered, eyes wide with shock, whispers buzzing like angry bees. "What happened?" Richard gasped, shoving through gaping faces. His heart pounded, heavy and insistent. Panic gripped his throat. A woman near the front grasped his arm. There was an explosion. Someone's trapped inside. Trapped. The word slammed into him like a fist. Was it one of his friends? The models who danced through his life like flickering stars? Or worse, was it someone he loved? He felt the instinct to run deeper, felt adrenaline pump through him. Before he could find his footing, another voice shouted through the chaos. "There's a man!" "He's saying he knows you, Richard." His blood turned to ice. He dashed forward as flames cast an eerie glow across the panic-stricken crowd. Through the hungry blaze, he spotted a figure struggling against the bright orange glow, coughing, shadows flickering and twisting around him like demons. "Mark!" Richard called out, recognizing his business partner, the very man who helped elevate him into wealth and influence. Mark's eyes widened, desperation painting his features. "I tried to warn you. I thought you could help." The flames crackled menacingly. Richard fought against the rising heat, but a sudden, horrifying realization struck him. The explosion hadn't been an accident. Mark's frantic gestures hinted at something darker. Something was off. His heart pounded louder, louder still. "Where's Maya?" he shouted, searching for the woman who had ignited a flicker of hope in him. But she was nowhere to be found, swallowed up by the chaos. A sickening thought rolled through his mind. Had she known? Was she connected to this disaster? The fire roared, and another explosion rippled through the building, brighter and more violent. Richard staggered back, stomach lurching. Everything he thought he understood suddenly felt like flickering shadows. He couldn't think straight. Was Maya a spark of inspiration or the beginning of the end? He turned to Mark, panic in his eyes. "What do I do? What do I do?" "I don't know," Mark screamed, voice splintering under the weight of fear. But Richard wasn't listening anymore. The night closed in, the wind whipping through the street like a sinister whisper. He could feel Maya's words echoing in his mind, urging him to act. He had to choose between the chance to save Mark or tear himself away to find the truth about Maya. The sirens wailed in the distance, and a new dread settled in his bones. This wasn't just about riches and dreams anymore. This was life and death. All the glimmering possibilities he had cradled melted into the looming shadows of betrayal and ruin. Richard stood at a crossroads, heart pounding fiercely in his chest. Could he face the truth that might change everything? Would he rush to save the man tied to his fortune, or would he risk it all for the mystery of a woman he barely knew? The choice twisted in his gut, tighter and tighter. The fire blazed on, illuminating a future forged in smoke and uncertainty. And Richard stood trembling on the brink. The night was thick with unspoken words. Richard could feel the electric energy between him and Maya. He wanted to know her truth, but fear gripped his heart like ice. Then, just as he opened his mouth to ask, the world exploded into chaos. A sudden crash echoed down the street. The sound sliced through the cool night air, snapping Richard from his reverie. He turned to see a car veering out of control, tires screeching, headlights blinding. It careened toward them, a metallic beast hungry for harm. Richard's instincts kicked in, pulling him closer to Maya. But instinct did little against the impending disaster. The screeching stopped. A sickening thud filled the air, followed by stunned silence. Richard felt his heart racing, almost jumping out of his chest. His eyes darted around, searching for answers in the shocked faces that had gathered, drawn in by the noise. Then he saw her, a woman crumpled on the ground, her body twisted unnaturally under the chaotic glow of streetlights. At that moment, Richard's attention snapped back to Maya. She was staring, eyes wide, mouth forming a soundless scream. The deep pain reflected in her gaze turned his stomach into knots. Richard's heartbeat echoed in his ears. Then the panic settled in like a dark cloud. "Maya, what's wrong?" He was just about to reach for her when she took a step back, her expression morphing into sheer terror. "What are you doing here?" Maya blurted, her voice barely above a whisper. She was shaking, the raw fear palpable. "You can't." "Richard, we need to help." But Maya didn't hear him. Her thoughts were already in a whirl, racing. The crowd was parting, murmurs rising like smoke all around. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. The driver of the vehicle, a tall man with wild eyes. He staggered out, panic etched into his features. "I didn't see her! I swear Maya gasped, her hand shooting up to cover her mouth. "No, it can't be." Richard's pulse quickened. It was as though the air had shifted, suffocating. A name popped into his mind, a name that felt like a jagged knife. "Maya, who is that?" The world felt tighter. The darkness settled, pressing against them. "I didn't want you to find out like this," she said, her voice cracking. "I told you, I was part of something big, something dangerous." Maya stepped forward, eyes locked onto the driver, like a hawk on its prey. "You don't understand who he is," she continued, her voice trembling. "He's connected. I told him to leave it all behind, but he found me." The driver's face paled, recognition dawning. "Maya, please, you know I—" A sense of dread twisted Richard's insides. The pieces began to fit together, but the picture was darker than he imagined. "What did you do? What are you involved in?" Maya shook her head, the grief palpable in her eyes. "It's too late. I thought I could escape." The crowd was growing. Their whispers turned into a storm, the air electric with horror and questions. Richard felt that tight grip around his heart again, squeezing harder than before. And just as the night seemed ready to swallow them whole, a distant siren wailed. The sound cut through everything, urgent, unrelenting. Richard watched Maya, saw the truth hidden beneath her bravado. The vibrant woman he met mere hours earlier was unraveling before him, pieces of her past spilling out like broken glass. This wasn't just about them anymore. The stakes were rising, and the danger felt like a dark fog creeping closer, wrapping around them both. What had Richard stumbled into? What secrets lay buried, waiting for the dawn? The siren grew louder, and with it, the sense that time was running out. He held his breath, feeling the walls closing in. The night pressed heavily on Richard's chest, each tick of the clock seeming to echo louder with his rising anxiety. The crowd reacted to the chaotic scene, murmuring with disbelief. Richard could barely breathe. Maya's words about her past, about being part of something dangerous, hung thick in the air. But there was no time. Sirens wailed, she shouted, panic lacing her voice. "You don't understand what they'll do to him, or to me." A wave of uncertainty washed over him. But before he could respond, a voice cut through the night. "Hold it right there." A figure stepped from the shadows, unmistakably a police officer, determination etching his face as he aimed his flashlight toward them. The officer's presence sent a ripple through the crowd, faces turning away from the blaze, drawn to the unfolding drama. Richard's heart raced as he shifted, instinctively blocking Maya from the officer's view, wrapping her in a protective cocoon. "Maya, please!" He tried to reach her through the chaos. "We have to save him. We can't just let this happen." But she shook her head, eyes wild. "Richard, it's too late for that!" Her words sank in, heavy like stones. The panic subsided momentarily, only to be replaced by a chilling silence as they all stared at the crumpled figure on the ground. Richard took a step back, uncertainty flooding his mind. Suddenly, the crowd gasped in unison. The driver, now stumbling and shaking, was raising his hands, fear replacing his earlier rage. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." Everyone held their breath. Richard's confusion deepened, suspicions swirling like smoke. Then the twisting shadows shifted. Out of nowhere, another figure emerged from the alley. A woman, her clothes torn, face pale. She burst into view, eyes darting around, searching. for Maya. Maya, she called, voice cracking under the weight of desperation. They're coming! You have to run! You're not safe! Richard felt a cold shiver creep up his spine. Who was this woman, and what did she know? The officer took a step closer, his flashlight piercing the night. Everyone, step back. I need to know what's happening here. Maya froze, eyes wide, as recognition flooded her face. Seen. No! No, it can't be you! Her voice shattered, crumbling under the weight of fear. I told you to stay away. In the blink of an eye, the woman closed the gap, pulling Maya into a fierce embrace. But the officer broke them apart with a wave of his hand, frustration boiling over. Someone better start talking before this gets out of control. Richard glanced between them, watching as panic darkened Maya's expression. How deeply was she tied to this madness? I have to, the woman said, her voice desperate but steady. They're revealing everything. You don't have time. The officer's brow furrowed deeper. What is she talking about? But before Maya could respond, the sound of approaching vehicles roared to life. A convoy of black SUVs skidded into view, slick and polished. The crowd gasped, and an eerie silence descended. Within moments, armed figures emerged, all dressed in dark tactical gear, eyes scanning the scene. Maya's breath hitched, panic rippling through her body. No, they found me! Just as the truth of her panic settled over Richard like a thick fog, the officer closest to them stepped forward, his hands raised. But those darkly dressed agents already in motion. Maya! Richard shouted, confusion morphing into dread. What's happening? Who are they? And as fear tightened around them, everything shifted in an instant. The leading figure from the SUVs took off their mask, revealing a familiar face. Richard, they said, voice smooth yet menacing. You've been kept in the dark too long. This was never about just Maya. Shock shot through Richard like a lightning bolt. What do you mean? Everything about you was part of a larger game. Your wealth, your connections, you were never innocent in this. Maya's face fell, the color draining from her cheeks. No, it can't be true. Richard felt his world tumble around him, spinning out of control. The eyes of the crowd, once filled with confusion, now brimmed with judgment. Whispers creeping like shadows. As dread tightened around him, the officer shouted, Everyone, back away! You don't know what you're involved in. Maya, Richard whispered in disbelief, a tremor of betrayal coursing through him. What did you drag me into? The figure from the SUVs stepped even closer. All of you are marked now. In that moment, the world snapped like a brittle twig. Richard's mind raced as everything he believed disintegrated before him, leading to one shocking conclusion. Things were about to spiral far beyond anything he could have imagined. Richard's world began to spiral as the figure from the SUVs stepped forward. You've been kept in the dark too long. This was never about just Maya. The man's words crashed over him like thunder, shaking him to the core. He couldn't fathom the implication, a tight knot forming in his stomach. Maya stood next to him, her eyes wide with terror as she staggered back. No, no, your wealth, your connections, you were never innocent in this. The man's gaze pierced through the crowd, each word like a dagger slipping deeper. Richard felt the collective gasp of the onlookers, their faces painted with confusion and horror. Even the officer's authority faltered, the air filled with palpable dread. "Maya, what are they talking about?" Richard's voice trembled as the truth blurred around him. Darkened whispers filled the air and closed in like a noose. Suddenly, an unexpected sound sliced through the chaos. A blaring horn, sharp and urgent, came tearing down the street. The SUV sped toward them, tires screeching. In an instant, panic erupted. The crowd scattered, shouting in confusion. "Maya!" Richard yelled, reaching for her. But in that horrifying moment, the SUV collided with the assembled chaos, exploding into a ball of flame and glass. A deafening roar shattered the night. Richard was knocked off his feet, heat washing over him like a tidal wave. He felt the ground shake violently beneath him. Smoke spiraled into the air. In the chaos, everything slowed, faces blurred. Cries punctuated the dark night. Then silence fell, heavy and thick. Richard pushed himself up, coughing, his vision hazy. The world was a swirl of smoke and confusion. He scanned the scene. What had just happened? Maya? His heart raced as he searched frantically for her. Emerging from the smoke was a figure, a shadowy silhouette dragging itself forward. A woman. Richard squinted through the haze, and in that moment of clarity, pure shock surged through him. It was Maya, but she was covered in soot, eyes fierce and determined. "Help them!" she screamed, pointing to the wreckage. "We need to get people out," Richard faltered. They were in danger. But something in Maya's expression gripped him, pulling him toward her. "What did you do?" And just as he reached her, the crowd erupted once more with screams, because from the flames a figure emerged. A man stood, but he didn't look right. He trembled, skin charred and ghostly pale. But Richard's gut twisted in recognition. It was Kyle, the unknown man from earlier. "Maya," he rasped, stumbling toward them, voice cracking. "You have to listen." In that instant, Maya's expression shifted. A flicker of shock turned into rage. You were supposed to be dead." A thunderous crack interrupted them as a new SUV pulled up, windows tinted dark. The door swung open, and a woman emerged, powerful, imposing. Her gaze swept over the scene and locked with Richard's, piercing through the smoke. "Richard," she bellowed, voice smooth but icy, "I see your little game has gone awry." It was Angela, his ruthless mentor from the business world. The woman who had pulled him into this glittering chaos in the first place, now standing there, eyes glimmering like daggers. Everything you thought you knew was just a front. Richard felt the weight of betrayal crash over him like a tidal wave. "What do you mean?" he managed to choke out, heart racing. Then the truth cut deeper than he could have imagined. Maya was never just a spark. She's the centerpiece of everything, connected to the very networks you thought you were controlling. Richard gasped, the truth shattering him. Maya, his Maya, was the core of the dark web he never wanted part of. Before he could process, Angela's hand flicked, signaling. A team of armed agents swarmed in from all directions, their cold eyes fixed on Maya and Kyle. As Richard stood frozen, the shocking betrayal spiraling into chaos all around him, in that heart-stopping moment, he realized he was not just entangled. He was ensnared in a trap with no escape. Maya locked eyes with him. Fear mingled with anger. "I never wanted this. You have to trust me. But everything Richard thought he knew cracked like dry clay beneath his feet. And as the ground shifted, uncertainty gripped him. Who could he trust now? The night roared with danger, and as the agents closed in, he felt the very foundation of his life tremble. He stood, heart pounding, caught in a storm of lies and revelations that left him questioning everything and wondering if he would survive this night at all. Richard's heart thundered in his chest as armed figures closed in, the air thick with tension. He stood between Maya and the dark storm of agents that sought to settle old scores. The chaos swirled around him, the remnants of the explosion still crackling like loud whispers in the night. Maya, he breathed, struggling to maintain focus as her eyes flicked over the scene. Panic etched into her features. We have to leave, now! But before she could respond, Angela stepped forward with an unyielding grin, her gaze like ice. You're playing a dangerous game, Richard. This isn't just about Maya anymore. This is big. Enough! All of you! Maya shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. In that moment, Richard saw something fierce ignite within her. She squared her shoulders, and he could feel the heat of her determination burning through the fear. I won't let you take him! With a quick motion, she swung around, taking hold of Richard's arm and pulling him back. Follow me! They dashed to the side, weaving through the thick smoke and shadows that still lingered from the wreckage as the agents shouted commands. Richard's mind raced, balancing the chaos of his heart with the raw urge to protect Maya. Together, he muttered, gripping her hand. They burst into an alley, secluded from the chaos, lungs burning with smoke and adrenaline. The pounding of their hearts filled the silence, blending with distant sirens. They're coming after you, Maya, Richard panted, urgency threading through every word. You need to tell me what's going on. With trembling hands, Maya wiped the soot from her face and caught Richard's gaze. It's not just about me. It never was. Tears filled her eyes, raw and real, the weight of her reality pressing in. I was part of something that spiraled out of control. I thought I could escape, but they won't let me go. Then let's fight back, Richard said, eyes blazing. We can't let them win. We have to make them see we're stronger together. But then they heard the footsteps, heavy and unrelenting, drawing closer. Richard turned, eyes wide. They're coming! Suddenly, Kyle stumbled into view, bruised but alive. I can help! We can take them down together! Richard locked eyes with Maya, hope flickering. Can you trust him? Maya hesitated, but then nodded, determination returning. Together, then, she whispered. Adrenaline surged as they dashed toward the sound of the approaching agents, ready to confront whatever darkness loomed ahead. They burst into the street, hearts racing, their reflections flickering in the shattered glass of the SUV wreckage. Richard shouted, "This ends now!" The air crackled with an electric buzz, and in that moment of unity, they stood together against the tide of chaos, ready to reclaim their lives. Then, without warning, a blinding light flooded the street from another direction. Police cars swerved into the chaos, officers rushing in with precision. Shadows fell under their commanding presence, and suddenly the misguided agents froze. Drop your weapons, now! The tide turned, and the night sang with hope. As order unfolded, the remnants of danger dissipated, leaving only the reality of what could be rebuilt. Richard turned to Maya, a flood of relief washing over him. You did it! We did it! But she was still gazing at the distant chaos, her expression an intricate dance of relief and apprehension. What happens now, Richard? Are we really free? He nodded, though uncertainty tugged at his heart. We'll figure it out, together! As they turned to walk away from the unfolding scene, a weight lifted from Richard's shoulders. The dark shadows of the night began to fade, replaced by a spark of renewed hope. Yet in the shadows behind them, a figure lingered. Even as the chaos subsided, the story wasn't over. The operatives wouldn't give up easily. Richard caught Maya's eye, sensing the unspoken truth lingering between them. They were bound to face whatever lay ahead together, secrets and shadows trailing closely. But for tonight, they turned away from the chaos, hearts beating in sync, ready to embrace a new beginning filled with mystery. Now you need to act. This is your moment to show support. Subscribe immediately so you don't miss the exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let your voice be heard. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who you think need to see this. Don't wait even a second longer to share. Every action counts. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.